Welcome. Thank you for watching this voting member video orientation in preparation for the 2014 Assembly of the ELCA Southeastern Synod. I'm Ruth Hamilton, pastor of St. Luke Lutheran Church in Atlanta. I also serve as secretary of the Southeastern Synod. With me for this orientation is Michelle Angelet, assistant to Bishop Gordy and assembly coordinator.
If this is your first time serving as a voting member at a Synod Assembly, welcome. This is an important way for you to serve the church beyond the walls of a congregation, and your presence will allow us to accomplish important work that can only be done by this annual assembly. If you have served as an assembly voting member before, thank you for your willingness to serve again and for watching this important orientation video. We look forward to gathering together in Chattanooga under the theme of living into the future together.
At the beginning of the first plenary session on Friday, Bishop Gordy will review the vision and mission of the Assembly. This orientation video is designed to familiarize you with specific ways we carry out the business of the Assembly and to outline your duties as a voting member. The chair of the Assembly is Bishop Julian Gordy. On occasion, he may call on the Vice President, Ms. Doris Underwood, to preside over items on the Assembly's agenda. My role as Secretary of the Synod is to keep the official record of the Assembly's actions. The fourth officer is Mr. Lee Smith, the Synod Treasurer. The Reverend M. Wyvetta Bullock, Assistant to ELCA Presiding Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, will be the church-wide representative this year. She will bring a message from the presiding bishop, update us on the state of the ELCA, and lead a workshop. Our keynote presenter this year will be Dr. Rolf Jacobson. Dr. Jacobson teaches Old Testament at Luther Seminary and will lead our Bible study and 3 workshops. Bishop Gordy, Dr. Jacobson, and Reverend Bullock will preach at the Assembly worship services.
Crucial to your work at this assembly are the assembly materials. These documents are found on the Assembly Materials page of the Assembly website. They are divided into sections with the pages of each section labeled sequentially on the bottom center of each page. The exception to this labeling is in Section I, the Exhibit section. Each exhibit is labeled with its exhibit number in the top right corner of the page. One of the key resources for our work at Assembly is the Assembly Rules of Organization and Procedure. You will find the proposed Rules of Organization and Procedure in Section I, Exhibit 1. They will be submitted for adoption during the first plenary session. According to the Rules of Organization and Procedure, we will use Robert's Rules of Order to govern parliamentary procedures at the Assembly, and we have a parliamentarian there to ensure that the procedures are correctly followed. We are again honored this year to have the Reverend Warren Cassidy as our parliamentarian. Let's look more closely at your assembly materials. This would be a good time to locate them online and follow along as you can. Every voting member should have a copy of the assembly materials. If you indicated on your registration form that you need a paper copy provided, then it will be provided for you when you check in at Assembly. If you indicated that you would view them online, then you are responsible for bringing your own device with which to view them. We will provide the wireless code for you at the Assembly when you check in, and you will access the materials through the Southeastern Synod website as you are doing now. Another option for viewing materials before and during the Assembly this year is through the Guidebook app for mobile devices. Early in May, we will provide a link to you to a website for downloading the app. The Guidebook app was used by all voting members at the 2013 Churchwide Assembly and provides easy access to documents, including annotation features. You will need to provide your own mobile device. Please note that though we will not be able to provide access to electrical outlets at the tables in the plenary hall, we will offer a charging station this year for electronic devices. The first page following the table of contents contains the 2014 Southeastern Synod Assembly information. Please read it soon so that you can be as prepared as possible for your time as an Assembly voting member. The proposed agenda and a list of workshops can be found in Section A. You will also receive written reports of the officers and staff of the Synod in Section B. the report of the Synod Council, as well as reports of the work of others such as Synod committees, task forces, agencies, and institutions are also found in Section C. Section D contains nomination information as well as biographical information on persons nominated for synodical positions. You will likely be adding pages behind Section D as biographical information on additional candidates nominated at the Assembly is collected. Prior to the Assembly, please read these biographical forms carefully, as there is not sufficient time during the election proceedings. Sections E, F, and G contain information about items that will be voted on by this Assembly: the proposed 2015 ministry funding plan, bylaw changes, and resolutions and memorials, and the 2015 compensation guidelines. In Section H, we remember those persons rostered in the Southeastern Synod who entered the Church Triumphant since our last Assembly. Section I contains exhibits, and J has the opening and closing litanies for the Assembly and a voting member cost-sharing form. Please note that while some of these items are already posted online, others will be posted in the coming days. Please check back frequently. It's much easier to read and review the materials as they are posted rather than the day or two before Assembly begins.
You will act in this Assembly on a variety of proposals, some from the Synod Council, others from members of the Synod in the form of resolutions that come to you through the work of the Reference and Council Committee. In addition to numerous Assembly decisions, you will be electing people to serve our Synod in a variety of capacities. Positions to be elected are found on pages D1 and D2 of your materials. You may also nominate people from the floor for these positions. The specific forms to use to nominate people for various positions are located within Section D. Nomination forms for persons nominated for Vice President and all other positions must be submitted by 2:45 p.m. on Friday. You can submit nomination forms to the Assembly office, which will be located in Meeting Room 17, just across the plenary hall entrance. Information and additional forms may also be obtained from the Assembly office.
During plenary sessions of the Assembly, voting members will be seated at round tables in the plenary hall. Visitors should sit at the round tables or in the chairs located at the back of the hall. We will not be seated by conference this year, so please find a seat that enables you to see and to hear. The badge you receive when you check in or register should be worn at all times, since this will give you access to the plenary hall and workshops. If you misplace your badge, please go to the registration desk and get a replacement immediately. While online Assembly registration is now closed, voting members and visitors who were not able to register by May 2nd will be able to do so beginning Thursday evening at 6 o'clock and continuing again at 8 o'clock on Friday morning. Voting members should remain in the plenary hall during each session. Proxy and absentee voting are not permitted at the Assembly. If you need to exit the hall, please do so in a manner that will not disrupt those around you.
As a voting member of the Assembly, you will consider resolutions, amendments to resolutions, and memorials. Memorials are resolutions to be sent to the ELCA Churchwide Assembly. The deadline for submissions for this Assembly is May 9th. The only resolutions and memorials that will be considered after the deadline are those relating to an issue of such an immediate and urgent nature that it clearly cannot be postponed until the next Assembly, as determined by either the Committee on Reference and Council or the Synod Council. If you have such a resolution or memorial for consideration, please contact Justin Osk, Chair of the Committee on Reference and Council. His contact information is available on the Assembly webpage or by contacting the Synod office. As a voting member of the Assembly, you also have the right to speak to the Assembly. The proper procedure is to go to a microphone and wait to be recognized by the chair. It is never appropriate to shout out a proposal or to speak without first being recognized. When you speak, remember to address your remarks to the chair, not as conversation with another voting member. Speak to the issue at hand. Under the proposed Assembly rules, any speech you make during the discussion should be limited to 3 minutes. Yellow and red cards will be used by the timekeeper in the assembly hall to signal the time remaining for a speech. A yellow card will be held up 30 seconds before your time is up. A red card will be held up when your time has ended. When you see a red card, please conclude your remarks immediately.
Each voting member will also receive a set of red, green, and yellow cards when you check in. Keep those cards handy. As much as possible during discussion and debate, a speaker on one side of an issue will be followed by a speaker on the other side. When you approach a microphone to speak, hold up a green card to indicate your intention to speak in favor of the pending matter on the floor, or a red card to indicate your intention to speak against the matter or end debate. The yellow card is only to be used for a point of order or point of information. The only time it is appropriate to use the yellow card is if you have a question about parliamentary procedure, if you need clarification about what is being voted upon, or if there is an issue in the hall that needs attention so that business may proceed, such as one portion of the hall losing sound or light. People who approach the microphone with yellow point of order cards will be moved immediately to the front of the line, in front of people waiting to speak on the issue. So be sure you are bringing a point of order or information when you use the yellow card. Otherwise, you will be ruled out of order.
We may also use the red and green cards to vote. You would hold up a green card to vote in favor of a matter and a red card to vote against. If a vote is taken in this manner and there is no clear majority, the chair may call for the Elections Committee and plenary volunteers to count the votes. All election committee members and plenary volunteers will have a green button identifying them and will be assigned to a section of the hall. They will count by tables and will signal your table to put down voting cards after counting has occurred. When we use the paper Scantron ballots, each table will be provided with number 2 pencils. Please do not use a pen. Your ballot will be invalid. Give ballots only to persons wearing green buttons. Those persons collecting ballots will only take them from voting members who are wearing green name tags. All visitors have red name tags. If you are a voting member and do not have a green name tag, you cannot vote. Please visit the registration desk to resolve the issue. Resolutions and memorials will be considered by this assembly during plenary session 3, which occurs on Saturday afternoon. If you wish to amend a resolution or memorial that is being considered by the assembly, you would go to the microphone, wait to be recognized, identify yourself by name and congregation, and then say, "I move to amend," and state what it is you wish to propose to the assembly. Your motion to amend must be seconded by another voting member. It is very important that amendments be submitted to me in writing before or immediately after the motion to amend is properly made. Let's try by example to show some of the common pitfalls that occur in assemblies. Mark Freitag, a member of St. Luke, has agreed to play the role of voting members. I will play the role of chair. The chair recognizes microphone 1.
I just think what is being proposed is magnificent. This is something that should have been done a long time ago.
What was wrong with that? The speaker did not identify himself and his congregation. When you come to the microphone after you are recognized, remember to identify yourself, your congregation, and your conference. Let's try that one again.
Microphone 1.
Reverend Chair, I'm Jeff Thompson from Reformation Lutheran Church, Greenville, Tennessee, Conference 6. I speak in favor of the proposal. I think what is being proposed is magnificent.
Let's try another. Microphone 2.
Reverend Chair, I'm Paul Banks from Christus Victor, Ocean Springs, Mississippi, Conference 9. I move the previous question.
Okay, what is move the previous question? If a voting member moves the previous question, it means that all debate will end immediately if the motion is approved by a 2/3 vote of the assembly. This action also prevents amendments from being made. You cannot move the previous question unless you are at a microphone and have been recognized by the chair. You can move the question on all matters before the House or on just the current item under discussion. To move the previous question and end debate, you should approach one of the microphones with a red card. Do not use a yellow card. Yellow is only for point of order and point of information, and stand in line. You may not move the previous question if you have just finished speaking to the matter before the House. A motion to move the previous question must be seconded, but it is not debatable or amendable.
Okay, so let's pretend that the motion to move the question was seconded and approved by a 2/3 vote of the Assembly. Now the chair calls for the vote on the question. Suddenly,
Hey, point of order, point of order.
microphone 1, what is your point of order?
I'm Joe Johnson from And Also With You Lutheran Church, Countryside, Alabama, Conference 11. I was already standing here before the vote to end debate, and I really wanted a chance to voice my opposition to the proposal before us.
So what went wrong here? Well, once the Assembly approved the motion to call the question, there cannot be any further debate. Also, the yellow point of order card should not be used just to interrupt the proceedings.
If you think that the rules of the Assembly are being violated, then you may use your yellow card to call for a point of order, which means the speaker thinks that there has been an infraction of the rules. Or if you have a specific question for a speaker, you may call for a point of information. A point of order must be raised immediately after the error is made. So if you have a point of order, you should go to the front of one of the microphone lines with your yellow card ahead of the red and green cards and say, "Point of order." The chair would then ask you to identify yourself and state the point of order. But remember, if you try to use your yellow card improperly, you will be ruled out of order. Let's try another one. Microphone 1.
Bruce Jones from Shepherd of the Sea, Coastal, Mississippi, Conference 12. I believe this proposal before us is outstanding. The commitments that we now plan to make together will help reflect our unity in the faith and our clear concern for mission. Therefore, I move to close debate.
What was the problem there? He moved to close debate after making a speech. Motions must be made first. Let me repeat that. Motions must be made first. After they are supported, then the maker may be given a chance to speak to the motion. By the way, a motion to close debate would have the same result as a motion to call the question.
Here's the last one. Microphone 2.
My name is Fred Smith, and I'm from the Lord Be With You Lutheran Church in downtown Georgia, Conference 10. Whoever you are who just finished speaking at that microphone over there, you have got to be crazy. That's the dumbest thing I've heard anyone ever say. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, the chair would have to rule these comments out of order. Only the chair should be addressed. Plenary conversation and debate are not to occur between voting members at the microphones on the floor. Always address what you have to say to the chair. Always stick to the issue under consideration and don't indulge in personal attacks.
Moving on to other matters. To facilitate the work of the Assembly, several committees are assigned specific roles that they fulfill before, during, and after the Assembly. The Committee on Reference and Counsel studies all the resolutions submitted to the Assembly and will make appropriate recommendations for Assembly action. The Credentials Committee will periodically report to the Assembly the number of voting members registered. The Elections Committee will conduct the elections and will report the results of balloting. The Minutes Committee will assist me in ensuring the minutes from this Assembly are recorded accurately. Finally, the Nominating Committee is responsible for nominating persons for most positions for which an election is to be held at this Assembly. One exception is that the Synod Council nominates candidates for the Synod Council at-large positions.
The officers and staff of the Synod are here to help in conducting the business of the Assembly and to make these days uplifting, exciting, and enjoyable. If you need assistance or have any questions, please do not hesitate to come to the Assembly office located in Meeting Room 17. If you have questions before that time, please call us in the Synod office. In addition, you will notice that folks throughout the Assembly wearing different buttons and ribbons. As I mentioned earlier, plenary pages and elections committee members are wearing green buttons. These are the people who will be distributing and collecting ballots. Members of the Synod Assembly Committee are those working with the technical issues and the running of the Assembly. Synod Council members this year can be identified with green ribbons on their badges. Our fabulous volunteers are wearing red vests and would love to help you in any way. And finally, the Synod office staff members are wearing red jackets throughout the weekend. If you have any questions or problems, look for a red jacket. And last but certainly not least, please remember that large plenary halls are often very cool. Temperatures in these large spaces with lots of people are intentionally kept on the cool side. Please plan to bring layers of clothes that you can put on and take off as necessary to be comfortable. We have very little control over the temperature in the plenary hall, but you can prepare by thinking ahead and packing accordingly.
You have a significant and faithful responsibility, that of serving as a voting member of the 2014 Synod Assembly of the Southeastern Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. May God bless you as you prepare to be part of the 2014 Assembly. May the Holy Spirit guide us as together we do God's work with our hands in Chattanooga. Thank you.